grab a seat. And thanks for braving traffic this morning. I'm Sarah Cantor, I'm the executive director, so welcome. Thanks again for coming out. We had a great opening reception last night for the show. This is the 86th annual Members Fine Art, so this is our longest running member show. We had an overwhelming number of submissions this year. Members can submit pieces, and it's not a juried show, but we have a wide range of talent here that you can see. And Heidi was nice enough to agree to act as the awards judge for the show. And that was a very hard job, I know, because there is a lot on the walls. So she's here just to give you some insight into her award selections and any other pieces of note that she wanted to discuss just from a creative standpoint. And if there are any artists in the audience and you would like some feedback about your piece specifically, we'll have time for that at the end. So I'll turn it over to Heidi.
So I would say it's very hard to judge. I had many submissions and my paper was not pretty by the end. I was like, can I have another piece of paper? Because I need to really think this through. I will give you this little note. I come from the crafts. So here, I'm judging the fine arts, but I come from a fine art crafts background. So that's my bias. I know it. I can't help it. So I do tend to look for crafted items. That's one thing I think. And then I'm from this area, so I know these seeds. And I feel like I had to say to myself many times, this is you can judge it like you would judge it, not like the judge of all judges would judge it, which means that you got my version of this. And you know, there's a lot in there. So I had to like kind of pick my tops, and then I love that we have so many different categories, because then I can say, oh, well, I love this one, and this one fits here, and I love this one, and this one fits here, and oh, this is done really well, and oh, the Schroeder drawing, like, okay, which ones fit into that, and then that made it much easier. And then I decided at the end that I needed one more category, because why not? That's what I do. I'm like, I love everything, but then I need one more category. And that was fun, because I really saw that there was a group of abstractions that I loved and wanted to go somewhere, and they needed kind of their own space. So, yeah, it was fun. And then they let me do it, so that was really fun. And some of them, I would say that I'm an inward-outward person. Like I start with in and go out. And so it really is about feel and vibration and drawing me toward it. So that was kind of how I do it. So I kind of have those two plays, like this craft mind and then like a very deep intuition feeling mode. So they had to come together for each one before. And it's weird because a lot of like the top 4 or 5 are like over in that area, which I don't know why they were all like kind of in that grouping on that 2 walls. And then this one just gave you the feel of like, you know, that space. I mean, I grew up sitting in these chairs, or maybe wanting to sit in these chairs. We had our chairs, but I was like, these are really cool chairs. So I felt like this one gave me like a real, like, this bold statement about Rehoboth. And that one, and just like the composition was really lovely, and the color and the vibrance is a beautiful piece. And then the, I don't know if you want to walk on it, but, yeah, do that. Yeah, let's go over here. You tell me when you're ready for the GW.
Good.
So this one got best in show, which, I don't know, it's like subtle and the light is beautiful, and I kept coming back to it, and it has just really calm but sweet feel, and done well, framed well, which does play a part. Does anybody have anything that they think about this piece?
I love the
to it. And, you know, like, this one could be best in show also, it's absolutely gorgeous. I mean, the workmanship in this, I mean, when you look and see those neon lights and, I mean, it's absolutely gorgeous. This one spoke to me a little bit more than this one, so it's so subjective. And then this one, I just felt like at the moment we're in, even though there's so many that represent the Eastern Shore and, you know, east of Route 1, I felt like at this moment we're in right now, this one feels like you're coming over the inlet bridge and like driving back and just like this is what you see more than you see something like this even or this. I felt like this one is very of the moment with the cars. Which I was like, well, and then the birds going by. It's a cool view of our coastline.
What is part of, what award is that?
This one was a scene from the Eastern Shore. It's like a quintessential scene, and I kind of went for the contemporary quintessential. Because I just felt like, that I tried to kind of keep that in mind, the contemporary moment. But again, there are so many, I mean, absolutely gorgeous, and, you know, so many good ones, like Still Life in a Very Crystal Form. And then this one over here, so I went through and found all the photography, sometimes I'm not sure. So I was like, is this photography, is this not? And so this one I thought was coming from a different perspective, and the way that they did the color was, you know, to my liking. It was very interesting the way that they kind of came out from both sides, and it was a different perspective than many photographs that are taken straight on. So this was best photography. But yeah, I mean, gorgeous, so many, like the collages, so many good ones. And then the crafts person got a hold of me over here. I was like, oh my God, it's polymer. So just the fact that they render this in polymer, I mean, it's just like a different use of polymer, very cool, and the way that it's layered and from across the room you would never know it's polymer, but really well done, really different, but traditional kind of in still life form. Did everybody know that was polymer? I was like, what is that? And then Nick's story, so gorgeous. I mean, it feels like you're in State Park and you're looking back on that path and the light. It's a lot like, you know, this one with the light, it just pulls you back. And I bet in the wrong light it could be really dark, but in the right light you get more light. And then there were a few that the Schroeder drawing, there's a more figurative one. I really love the one with the line quality. It was almost like a sculpture from Greek. But then this one just got me. It's just such a great rendering of human and has a lot of feel, and he's looking at you and gives you a vibe. And then this one that is the William Horn that you apply for as an emerging artist, and it was between this one and the one over there. We'll walk over. And this one is for an emerging artist, and I really thought that this piece felt like someone's going somewhere. I don't know exactly where they're going, but I want to support the going. I want to support the going somewhere. And for an emerging artist who's doing something different, Emily, it's like, it's different. It's very different than anything. And I only had two to choose from for this piece, the one over there and this one just felt like more emerging, more figuring themselves out, and I like to support that. And the figures, I mean, you could do something. There's so many great figures and so many different styles. And this one I forgot. This one is a watercolor, which I felt like you really tell a story in the way that they got the iridescent of the fish. before I wanted to render. And then that was like in the abstraction mode. We had some abstraction in this room. We can go into the other room. Yeah. And there are so many good ones in this that could be. I mean, like we have two really realistic ones. And again, like one of my biases is I go kind of away from that. I don't go always toward realism. But this is my own work. This is the best abstract work. It might only happen this year. But this, I just felt like there was a lot happening there. And you could kind of be in it for a while and see different things. And I loved it from different angles. You know, there's some more abstraction on that wall and some more abstraction on that wall. They're all just lovely. More abstraction as you come into this room. Yeah. And I think I always go back to composition and light and using the page and all of those, you know, art school kind of. My mom's the art teacher, so they're ingrained in me. She taught for 25 years at the Art League. Up in that room, I basically grew up in this place. I basically spent all of my days here. So and there's one more over here, which was the watercolor, which is a sweet little piece, which, you know, I kept coming back to, and this one's gouache. It just has you just kept bringing me back, kind of runs on abstraction and scene. And, yeah, I mean, look, it's lovely. It's so beautiful. And the one on the corner down there is gorgeous, and like the jetty. So, I mean, the one next to it. I mean, so many beautiful pieces that, yeah, I did my best. Oh yes, and then enough just felt again like it was very contemporary. Like we have had this moment for a little while now, we're ready to get past it. So I was thinking maybe we could just, you know, maybe this will help us move to the next place. We've had enough. Great name. And did anybody have any questions? Yeah?
I noticed this morning the best photograph says the medium, I think the artist put digital montage. Do you have any thoughts on technology and how that's integrated into art these days?
Well, I guess I do like manipulation. You know, I like that she did take it and, you know, bookend it, or I don't know what you call that, book, and manipulated it a little further than what exactly she saw. But I mean, I love technology. In my own work, I don't go toward technology. I go the other way. I go back to history and start engraving instead of going toward laser engraving. But I love it when I'm not sure. You know, when it comes in and it does its thing, but I'm not sure what's happening. And I also love when people add parts, you know, they layer. So they have some that they're making, and then some that they're adding, and some that they're bringing in digital. So I think it's just a tool. I really see them all as tools. And they're great if you use them well, just like your paintbrush. Does anybody else have any questions? Yeah.
Can you just comment on frames with mats and no frames when you start judging?
I mean, I look for a frame that fits the piece. It's really not about like mats or no frames. It's more like, okay, it's very simple, but it like fits the piece. And this is also like very simple, but it really frames the piece, so your eye just like kind of enters here. And then with frames, I think with it being less of a canvas and more of a paper, a lot of times we do mats. I personally wanted to highlight the piece and not get busy with the piece, but that's a personal opinion. I go for the simpler. Just because I want the work to talk and not get caught up. I know a lot of framers, sorry to framers, get a lot of like, they like to like pizzazz it up, and I'm not a big pizzazz kind of. But like, I mean, this is just, you barely notice the frame, but it feels framed with the buoys. So, Who did a good job on the, I mean, this is a very interesting one with the cherries where they, you know, pulled it off the page and I had to go check out like, is that a painting? I don't think it's painting. Is it I had to figure out what it was, so that was kind of cool. And then we have this one that's all of these parts and, you know, how do you frame that? But they did a nice job really creating the edges. They feel finished, you know, like this feels very finished to me. Which that's something you look for, like, did the artist finish at the end? Or did they leave it, were they not able to continue to it was complete, and that feels like, okay, I finished at the end.
Do you ever pick an unfriend?
Oh, yeah, I would definitely. Yeah, I mean, I don't wanna notice it, I guess, I don't wanna even like,
Right.
I don't wanna question it, yeah. It should feel intentional, like, this one feels intentional, doesn't need it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'm not doesn't have to be framed, but if it is gonna be framed, then
Yeah.
make the frame work. And, yeah, and I don't mind if you go out of the page, like those went off the page. Yeah. Did anybody see any that you're like, I can't believe that one didn't win? Are you kidding me?
Well, of course.
Yes,
Of course.
so many. I mean, there's so many good ones.
That's the beauty of art.
Yeah.
I mean, we all have our own.
Yeah, and I feel like I do know. I mean, being on the Public Arts Committee and being at DAC, I know more of what my biases are, and also seeing my own art collection, like, and my own art jewelry collection. Maybe a little bigger. I see what I choose now. Like, I tend toward more subtlety, which I'm like, weird. I do? Like, really? But I do. It's just what I'm drawn to.
Can't go to that.
Yeah.
I've heard other judges say they walk into a room, kind of peruse it,
Yeah.
and then what draws them back is
Yeah.
what they go back to, and is
Yeah.
that how you kind of, whatever draws you in?
Yeah, I did this room, and then I came and did this room, and I just, you know, like, let it all go, and then I came in and kind of went closer to pieces that were drawing you closer because they were drawing you closer, and then I kind of like spent more time, and then it got really hard at the end, you know?
Yeah.
That's when you're
Yeah.
like, oh, well, all these pieces. Yeah.
Question, did you hang the show and then it was hung by yourself or someone else?
Nick hung it. Mm-hmm.
So I guess my question would be, do you think the way it's hung and how the choices are where they're placed make a difference in maybe how you see it when you walk in?
Yes. For sure. Yeah. Like there were a few pieces I'm like, oh, would I have, if this were higher, like, because, you know, I mean, you only have so much wall space, so you have to hang the show.
Sure.
And I was like, okay, like, imagine this one higher, where does it hit me, you know? And there were a few pieces that I was like, okay, I would sit down to imagine them higher on the wall, because I thought, they want to be higher, they just couldn't be higher in this moment, so. So yes, I do think it
So
does.
hanging it makes to make a.
Display and presentation and hanging, I mean, I love all of that, like, I love hanging and display, and I work on it a lot in my shop. You know, what's too much, what's too little, and it makes a big difference for sure. I mean, Nick does a great job, but with this show, you're doing salon style, so it's hard to do. And you're doing salon style with like random, like a menagerie of pieces, so it's not like it's your collection.
Right.
That would be way easier, but yeah.
Can I add to that? Because I watched Nick hang the shows. For this one, I feel like this is always his hardest every year because there's so much. The content is everywhere and the mediums are everywhere. So he will take a day having them lean against the walls and rearranging and moving stuff around before he feels like it's the right fit, and then he'll start hanging. But he groups them like by size, by colors, by what's, you know, highlight colors in them. It's fascinating to hear him say, well, I put these here because you can see the blue there and the blue there. So there's a lot of thought that goes into it.
Yeah, and nothing felt like, oh, I wish, you know, there was no, in the show I was not like, oh, this piece shouldn't be here, which I would sometimes think. I can't help it. But yeah, it didn't feel that way. And it's also hard to have the two rooms, you know. But you can see his thoughts too in, you know, you draw on certain pieces, so where do they go? But yeah, and the printmakers, they did amazing. I saw some printmaking over there. They're gorgeous. Yeah, it's just a wide range of work that looks great. It's just all different. I could have picked so many pieces. And also just trying to find ways that people rendered things that are often rendered here in new ways. You know, like that one I feel like is a new take or a different take on a similar scene. Yeah.
One follow-up, did they submit the art based on categories that they would be judged by, or
No.
that title was from that?
Just whatever they want to choose for this show, right?
There's only one category which you
Yeah.
mentioned that artists must apply for.
That's the
best
emerging.
emerging, and then the other very specific one is, it's like best representation of coastal Delaware east of Route 1.
And that was the bridge one, which I'm calling the bridge, where you drive down. Which I feel like that was cool to have that one in there,
Yeah.
because it is kind of contemporary version of this moment, so. Yeah.
Did Nick have to turn anybody down for any reason, or did everything?
Only when, yesterday, the day of the opening, when the show was already hung, an artist called and said, you know, I forgot to apply.
No, where would you like it to go?
Yeah.
Behind the other side?
That was the only rejection. There were a couple artists that called yesterday and wanted late entry.
Everything is done.
Yeah, they're artists, they're like.
Yes, I know. It is hard doing all the things artists do. But,
Well, it's just, it speaks a lot to the quality of the artists that we have as members, that, you know, the show, everybody gets one piece and everything gets in, and it's all really high quality work.
yeah.
It's-
And I think it ups everybody's ante. You
Mhm.
know, like when you look around, you're like, okay, next year I'm gonna do this. Next year I'm gonna do this. I can see where I can grow.
I think there's a lot to learn from each other as the artists, like your question about framing. I have seen artists learn from their mistakes when they present a piece that's not a good frame job. And they'll come back next time and elevate their game a little bit, so it's good for them to sort of see their piece with others and where they fall in sort of professionalism and presentation.
And that's huge. Not everything, but it's huge.
I love this piece. I
Yeah.
wish there hadn't been one.
Everybody has said that.
Really?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Which one?
There were words
Oh,
about
wait,
there.
words, I don't-
It takes you to a different place.
Yeah,
Just the
it is,
image.
it's funny.
Well, you can make up many stories
Yes.
Yeah.
about it without the words.
Right.
And with the words, you're like, well, that's what he wanted.
Takes the mystique away
Yeah,
completely.
it's-
It's like,
Yeah, the words,
The
playing different.
the woman is done so
Yes.
beautifully.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
the feel of the whole thing is really well
Yeah.
done.
Mhm.
And hard to render.
I honestly see, so we don't speak the same
Yeah. Well, and you have a title, so like, could that be the title? And then, you know, do you need it on the piece? But that was something that people said.
I just want to make a comment on an artist, and I like what you said about the usual scenes that we see, but you sort of acknowledge where the same scene is rendered in a very different way.
Yeah.
And I think that's very good. When I first moved here, I thought, I don't want to do lighthouse, I don't want to do sunrises
Yeah.
and sunsets, because everybody else can do it a lot better. And then I started thinking, well, I've never done a lighthouse or this, so maybe I should try it. And it turned out it was one of my more popular things that people liked. But, you know, I tried to do it a little differently. But it was funny, I was sort of taken back by seeing 100 lighthouses. And then when I did it, it was a real challenge and it was fun.
Yeah.
So there was a certain a breakthrough there.
Yeah.
Like, I especially like that painting there, that's, the marshes, the sunrise or sunset there.
Yeah.
It's, their perspective is like a bird's eye view,
Yeah.
and it's so different, very rich.
Mm-hmm. People's use of color, how they render it differently than others. Yes, and it is true. I mean, lighthouse is such like, it has so much meaning also. So it's like you can't like take the meaning out of the lighthouse and like, you know, even though I'm not, so if I see another dolphin, if I see another lighthouse, if I see another, you know, but you really, they have meaning and they're beautiful and they're of the area. So you can't help but like, I mean, they're ingrained in my brain. Like every drawing scene, I mean, my mom would take us to the top of Mount Patty and we'd all get our, 3 of us. We all had our cutting boards and our tape and we paint and we get our watercolors out and, you know, I mean, we just would do this everywhere we went, all through the whole world. And so that was how we learned and they're like in me. I can't even help myself. Yeah. And GW and I painted a mural once together.
Yes.
King's Ice Cream in Milton.
Doesn't exist anymore, but
I know, it's on a big refrigerator truck.
That's funny.
Yeah. Yeah, anybody else, any questions?
Thank you so much.
thank you.
Thank you.